Happy Wednesday, Ron. How are you, sir?
I'm great, David. How are you?
Doing well. We are live on all the socials. We typically go live on Thursdays, but it's been all over the place the last couple of weeks. So we're going live on Wednesday. We've got a handful of topics to talk about today: some housing, some mortgage, some sci-fi, some AI. And we're going to chat. We usually chat for about 70 minutes, 65, 70 minutes. So if you're joining us, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching this later, as always, thank you. Make sure you follow or subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are Little Nessie, and we are a marketing company, and we love branding, social media, AI, and how it relates to the mortgage and housing industry. So with that, cheers. It's happy hour, Ron.
Cheers.
Where are you at today?
I am off the coast of Sicily.
Nice. How is Sicily?
Well, we arrive in a little bit. I can't wait to spend the day there tomorrow.
Gotcha. What's been your favorite place so far?
Oh, it's so hard. I really enjoyed all three or all four of our stops in Spain, including Magla and Cadiz and Barcelona. Those are all very beautiful places.
Gotcha. Have you been to all of those
I kind of
before?
enjoyed the Gran Canaria Island in the Canary Islands. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go there. Never have been though.
Yeah, it was definitely European, but it was pretty cool. I mean, it's the beaches were packed. It was 70 degrees. Would have thought it was like a heat wave. I mean, it was pretty dang busy.
Yeah. Well, it's been cold here on the east coast of the U.S. We've had plenty of snow, but it was here one day and pretty much gone. Not gone the next, but it's pretty much gone now. But it's been a fun wintry mix. But I'm ready for the warmer weather.
Yeah, me too. But good for you. It's fun to get snow.
Yeah. We hadn't had snow like that in 10 years or so, so it was fun.
Wow.
But let's go over what we're going to be talking about today. Let's pull up the first one. I'm going to be chatting about, and there is going to be a lesson involved. I'm not just talking about a TV show, but my From the Gut this week is going to be about a new show, new-ish. It came out probably a couple months ago, but Pluribus, and I'm going to tie that into AI and identity and so on. And then we're going to get into some more meaty topics and moving into the mortgage and housing industry. And Ron, lead the way on these.
Yeah, it was a week heavy with all sorts of data. This first one's a little distressing. How many people think they can still achieve the American dream? So we're going to talk about that and talk about the numbers. It's a little bit distressing. Then we're going to move to the role of AI in the mortgage industry. Now, we talked about this last week, David, and this is going to be a slightly different viewpoint than what we discussed last week, so I'll enjoy it.
Love it.
This is one of my favorite topics, and I think, David, you enjoy it. It's really talking about the affordability crisis, if it's a crisis, and if so, how do we solve it? So we'll approach it from two different directions, which I'm looking forward to that conversation. I know, David, you and I might have a spirited conversation about it.
Yep. And then we've got a handful of rapid fire topics. I think we've got 4 of them today, which we try to spend about 3 or 4 minutes on them. But we usually go over, which is why we talk for an hour and 10 minutes every week. But Ron does all the research for the topics, except for From the Gut, which is usually just a topic that is either trending or just thoughts that I've had through the week. And I put some time to kind of try to teach a lesson through it. So this first one is all about a TV show, Pluribus. So let's get into From the Gut. All right, so today, like I said, talking about a TV show. It came out on Apple TV. It was Apple TV Plus, but I think they rebranded to just Apple TV. I think about 2 months ago, and it was called Pluribus. And yes, there is, like I said, a lesson in it. I guess you would kind of call it a sci-fi show, but it doesn't really punch you in the face with it. It kind of just creeps up on you. It's from one of my favorite creators, Vince Gilligan, the creator, writer, director behind Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. The show, it's set in modern day world, and it starts with scientists on Earth tracking something coming towards our planet. I hear my glasses rattling. So they're tracking something coming towards the planet about a year and a half before the present day. Everything still feels normal. No superheroes, nothing Marvel or DC, no capes. But the incoming space phenomenon is secret, totally hush hush, until suddenly people all over the world start going into what looks like seizures or strokes. Then, just as suddenly as it came, they're gone. They're fine. They wake up and they're calm, but they're connected and in more than one way, in a very creepy way. They become joined in a sense. They're intellectually, emotionally, physiologically, and psychologically connected. Almost every single living person on Earth. And once they're connected, they appear to be happier. They work together. There's peace. They're basically aligned in every way, all except for about a dozen people on the entire planet. People from these dozen people, they're from different cultures, different countries, different languages, and they're all concerned about what they just witnessed and saw. This new population of humans living inside other people's bodies. They share they share the same thoughts, the same emotions, they share information in real time like one collective brain. And anytime they speak, they don't say I or me, it's always we or us. And here's what messes with you. The others, I'll call them, they don't call them that in the show, but the others, they aren't presented as evil. They they genuinely believe they're helping, like the world is better this way, less pain, less loneliness, less conflict. It's framed as a solution to the fallen nature of humanity and not as an invasion, which sounds great until you realize the cost of individuality. Now you've got the main character, Carol. She's one of my favorite actresses. Ray Seahorn, but her name is Carol. She is one of the immune, along with about a dozen others in the world. These dozen people can ask for anything they want from the others, and they get it just as quickly as a car can drive it to them, or a drone can fly it to them, or a grocery store completely restocked at their request. So Carol asks for a meeting with everyone who hasn't been affected, these other dozen people, and to her surprise, at that meeting, she's the odd one out. They all, the other 11 people, they all see the positive side of things. They see the absence of war, the collective kindness, and the lack of evil. But Carol doesn't want anything to do with it. She's as skeptical as they come. She's the one who doesn't buy it, and the fact that there might be an ulterior motive. But here's the tension: the others, they aren't trying to force her. They're patient with her. They're kind, almost too kind. They're saying to themselves, she'll come around eventually. And that's what made me think about AI. Because if you describe the others, it sounds a lot like how people talk about AI when they're excited. You've got collective knowledge, instant answers, always available, just basically intelligence on tap. And now, to be clear, I think you know this. I'm not anti AI. I'm optimistic about it, but I don't think the real fear people have is what AI is that AI is going to destroy the world. Although that might be the case, time will tell. It's more subtle. The fear or danger is what happens when collective intelligence becomes your personality. When you stop sounding like you, when you stop thinking like you, when you stop choosing what matters because the tool is fast or it's easier to accept the draft than develop your own voice. So here's the point. Collective knowledge, yes, it's powerful, but your identity still matters. It's what makes you you. That's the winning future, not humans versus AI, not AI replacing everyone. It's this, the collective intelligence plus individual voice. AI can give you the best starting point, but your job is to make it yours. But back to Pluribus for a second. The funniest way the show reinforces that idea is a character name. I think it's pronounced Kumba. He's kind of the comic relief. He fully takes advantage of the situation. He charters Air Force One as his private jet for a getaway to Vegas. He brings in the world's top chefs, even though the people cooking those meals may not actually be chefs. They've got the intelligence, the skills of everyone else that they're connected to. So in that world, everyone's a Gordon Ramsay or a Warren Buffett. Everyone can cook at a world class level or fly a plane or even perform brain surgery. Kumba looks at this whole situation and goes, okay, if this is the new world, I'm not going to panic. I'm going to learn how it works and live well, live his best life. So he adapts, he takes advantage. He's charming, funny, and somehow totally unbothered by what's going on. And honestly, that's how a lot of people are using AI right now. No big debate, just this exists, it's powerful. I'm going to use it, and that part is smart. But where people get it wrong is when they use AI like GPS with an unclear destination. They just start driving, following every turn, and then act surprised when they end up somewhere they never meant to go. So don't outsource the only part that actually matters, the part that makes you human, your voice, your taste, your point of view. AI can give you the speed and the structure. It can't give you you. And the show gives you that contrast as well. Carol starts out suspicious, defensive, pushing back, so much so that she threatens the others. And overnight, the entire city where she lives, Albuquerque, empties out and leaves her completely alone. She's the only one left in Albuquerque. After weeks of isolation, depression, and craving connection, she begs the others to come back. When they do, I should have said that there's some spoilers in here, by the way, but when they come back, she connects with them. She even forms a romantic relationship with one of them. But then later in the season is when the tension really ramps up. Another character becomes prominent. He's completely cut himself off like Carol did at the beginning from the others. He doesn't trust them, doesn't engage, wants nothing to do with them. But yet he decides to travel from, I think it's South America, not 100% sure, just to find Carol to have a conversation. Same world, same facts, but a totally the two have the same facts, but they now have a totally different response. He's angry, he wants answers and wants zero connection with the others. That's where I think we find ourselves in today's world. Some people embrace AI fast, some people reject it entirely. Some people think it's the beginning of Armageddon, but my perspective is it's not join the others and it's not burn it all down either. It's the collective intelligence without surrendering your individuality. Because the goal isn't to become an AI person. The goal is to become a better you with better tools. So if you're building content, building a brand, building a company, or maybe just trying to build trust, use AI like Kumba. Take advantage of the moment. Move fast, experiment, but don't become them. Don't copy and paste your way into a forgettable you. Don't let the tool dull you. Let it sharpen you. Think about it as AI is the draft and you're the editor. AI can give you the map, but you still have to pick that destination. Because at the end of the day, people don't follow information, they follow identity, they follow taste, they follow perspective, and they follow trust. There you go, Ron. That's my from the gut.
David, that is another great from the gut. And I really like how you applied it to common world AI. And it made me think, the show's name is Pluribus, which I really think that refers to Pluribus unum, which means out of many, one.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's what you're talking about, the AI. You can become one of the many and sound like everybody else that uses AI, or you can use it for good, maintain your identity, your point of view, your voice, and become one, which is what you're really advocating for. And so that was just such a great job.
Yeah, you should watch the show. I know you
Yeah,
you don't watch a ton of TV, but it's a really good show.
yeah, you're right. I'll put it on the
They've
list.
they've been renewed for season 2, so it's going to be very interesting. Like I said, it's kind of a sci-fi movie, but not really. But yeah, I just saw it was pretty soon into the show where I kind of made the connection with AI. I was like, that's going to be a future from the gut. So
Nice.
yeah. All right. Let's get to our first topic. We are talking about um, the American dream. How realistic or unrealistic?
Yeah, and David, this what caught my eye on this. It was a survey by IPX1031.com, and they surveyed 1,000 Americans, and they asked them kind of the status of the American dream. And there was all sorts of distressing numbers from this, which really should act as a call to action. But the headline number is 62% of Americans don't believe in the American dream of home ownership any longer. As a matter of fact, 48% said owning a home isn't even part of the American dream.
Mm.
And then another 61% said we can't attain it even if we thought it was. And there's a lot, and that's just the beginning. There's tons of data points in this survey. But the first thing is today, younger generations think they can achieve the American dream, which is loosely defined as living a better, richer, more fulfilled life than your parents. That's what the American dream is actually loosely defined as. But many younger generations now think they can achieve that through the stock market, and they're much more involved in the stock market than previous generations. And that's where they're trying to get their, advance, financial advance in life. But the survey results go on to talk about a whole bunch of things like what are your greatest fears? What are your obstacles to home ownership? Like the greatest, it's funny and some of the answers are conflicting. Like, I don't think real estate is a good investment, but then the same subset said, but I fear that real estate prices are going to go up. Well, that's not making a ton of sense to me. And then when they talked about obstacles, they talked about down payment, pricing, interest rates. And then when they asked, well, what would take you to get off the sidelines and buy a house? Some of them said higher wages, lower house prices, lower interest rates. But what all the data screamed about, David, is just a real lack of information and clarity from potential home buyers. Like they don't understand the role that home ownership has in wealth. They clearly don't understand that homeowners are 41 times wealthier than renters. They're not understanding all that. And they don't understand what it takes to buy a house, what sacrifices you need to make and why. And so I was reading this survey. The thing that just leapt out to me again, and we get this a barrage of this every single week. We get more and more strong signals that if you're a mortgage or real estate professional, your calling should be out there educating potential home buyers on how to gain wealth through real estate. And you should be giving them certainty and confidence and information, and you should be their guide to making it happen. And that there's just a giant opportunity out there if you step into it. If you quit being about transactions and about being about educating people and leading them to home ownership, I think you can have a very, very enriching career and financial results.
McKenna, what are your thoughts on um, that? As far as seeing buying a house being realistic versus not, or is that not even on the radar for you?
Um, I mean, it definitely seems discouraging because I'm not a homeowner and I haven't been a homeowner, but we talked about this last week that I would eventually want to be one. And like hearing, headlines like that and topics like this, it definitely feels discouraging of like, okay, well, is that not going to happen for me? Or is this not going to happen for me until my 40s? Or, so it definitely is something that, like, puts a damper on my mood.
If you weren't part of this podcast, do you think you would even think about it at this stage? Is it in your TikTok feed? Do you see any headlines or any of that stuff? You know about it because you're on the show every week, but do you think it would even be top of mind at all for you at this stage in life?
It's definitely something that I do see on my social media,
Do you?
and, for sure, and I definitely think that what I see is more negative in, like, the headlines of, like, really inflating how unrealistic it is, as opposed to what I hear on this podcast and what I learn from the both of you. And so the being on this has helped me learn a lot, and it's helped me kind of manage my expectations of what buying a home will actually be like.
You know, we have a few slides on this topic, don't we?
Yeah, and you know what, McKenna, you really are representing a very common trend right now, and that is over the last few generations, we've shifted a little bit from being reality or experiential based to being psychology vibe based, right? Like we're more focused on how things feel to us than we are, and I don't mean you, I just mean younger generations, how it feels to us versus what's the reality, and that's where the gap is can you shift from vibe to truth or vibe to reality? And it's very, very hard. That's why most people are doing better than ever before. When surveyed, they say that the economy is horrible and their jobs are in danger, and which isn't really the case. But the vibe is what where it dominates. Is that might be a social media thing? Could be a standard media. Just we're not so anchored to reality right now.
News headlines. Let's bring up those charts. I think we've got three of them, right? Yeah. What's this
Yeah,
one
this is
saying
just
on?
the same thing. This showing 62% of Americans feel like buying a home is unrealistic. Also, 40, I think 48% that don't think owning a home is part of the American dream, and 62% believe that they're worried about their ability to buy a home if they wanted to. Here is, what are they waiting to change? I talked about this: lower interest rates, lower housing prices, higher income, better housing inventory, and then also a shift in the housing market, which is kind of undisclosed, but basic things that are obstacles.
Mm-hmm. And then one more. This
Yeah,
one's
and this one
small.
I just yeah, this one's super small, and this is what are people planning to do? What are the obstacles to buying a home, and how can they overcome it? When do they think they'll actually be in a position to buy? Type of thing, and it was. I guess the best thing is that 20%, 26% of people that don't own a home hope to buy one sometime in the next year or two. I think that's probably the most powerful data point in this.
Yep. Um, any further thoughts on that, or are we ready to move on to AI dominance?
Let's move on.
AI dominance, the race, the fight for AI dominance in the mortgage industry.
Yeah, David, I alluded to this article last week when we were talking about the AI's role in the mortgage space, and in that, I can't remember who sponsored that. That was it might have, I don't remember, but I remember Doc Magic was the sponsor. I can't remember who they partnered with. It might have been Housing Wire, And it was really the perspective from C-suite people, the role of AI in mortgage. And what was amazing, it was 100% operational compliance admin. There was no view of how AI would impact on sales. And so the article that we're featuring today is from Stratmore, and it's from Garth Graham, whom I love, who wrote the article with Michael Grad. But it talks about, gosh, what's the role of AI in the future, and what's the best ROI essentially? And do we have any slides on this? I don't remember.
I think we've got one.
Yeah. So the first question was, how do you, to these executives, how do you use AI? And so you can see the list here of how people currently use AI. And what the whole survey found is that most companies, most leaders, companies have a desire to step into AI. Like 73% say we're gonna lean into it this year, which is a high number. But then the majority said we don't know how to lean into it. Like we have no idea how to do it. And then in practice, less than 30% actually had a game plan or a strategy on what to do. So either like, yeah, let's do it. I have no idea what it would be or how I can do it, but let's go ahead and do it. And so they were very confused and without a plan. And so in the article, what Garth did, he said, look, here's the thing. First, think of AI as a air traffic control. That's why the name of the article is Prepare for Takeoff, AI and the Fight for Mortgage Lending Efficiency. It's like, go look in the mortgage world, it's super complicated. We have all sorts of inputs flying at us. We get leads and referrals, and we have all sorts of data points from our CRM and our predictive analytics. And then we have the whole manufacturing thing, and it's just a super clustered sky full of all these planes that want to land. What AI does, they act as the air traffic controllers to help the pilots land, or they constantly identify what's most important, like what's most important, and they facilitate, they help facilitate the customer experience in a much more demanding customer that wants to be, they want 24/7 access, they want a response right away, and it's very interesting. And then finally, the article ends with what I really like and said, okay, where is the greatest ROI with AI? The first thing it said, look, gaining efficiencies with AI and technology is now at table stakes. If you can't gain those efficiencies, you're going to be crushed. You're just not going to have the right, expense stack. They're just not going to work, right? But aside from that, if you're going to take the first step into AI, use it to leverage for sales, right? For sales things. We'll use it, like they said, the number one return and the easiest to apply are like AI agents. AI agents that take inbound phone calls, even make outbound status calls that help your manage your Salesforce's daily activities and their priorities, helps manage your database, gives you all sorts of signals. Go step into that. That's the easiest and most effective thing right now, and that's far easier than say writing, automated underwriting platform. And so I really like that, and that's what the Housing Wire last week missed, David. It didn't even talk. It didn't reference one time how AI can impact sales. And this one I loved as soon as I read it, because on the second half of the article, what it says is why top of the funnel matters right now, and it gives you arguments right now, right? And it was great and powerful. I recommend everybody read it. I think you can access that on the stratmoregroup.com website under their insights.
I've got two thoughts here. I'm surprised that fraud detection is as low as it is, because you would think AI would be an easy one, right? To detect fake signatures, to detect fake accounts, to detect all these different things. You would think that would be higher, don't you think?
Yeah, I think, David, why it's not is because that's the application of that comes from current vendor relationships, right? Meaning that Encompass is already building those tools in.
Mm,
Um, Octa Blue, like the tools we use are already kind of building that. So I don't know if C-suite people think we need to go out and get a bolt-on to what our vendors are already working on. Doc
gotcha.
Magic, like all the things we use, that's part of their premium package that they're leaning into, is my
Right.
guess. But it's a really
Right.
good point.
Yeah. My other thought here is that all the big companies are leaning heavily into AI. But your small to medium size might be slower to adopt. But I wonder how much of that is due to the fact of how new AI is, and there's really no or very few consulting companies, AI consulting companies, and it's the CTO has been charged with leading the AI world, where that person might be brand new to it just as much as you or me or anyone else is. They're just kind of figuring it out, and the fact that it's changing every day almost. So wondering if that's the reason most small to medium sized companies aren't adopting it, because there's no experts yet, other than the people that are building the AI.
Yeah, David, I agree that they just don't even know how. They don't even know how to
Yeah,
get started. They don't have resources. They don't know who to trust. And they're jaded because they've been overpromised about technology for 3 decades. And so the next new things here, they're like, yeah, I've heard this 100 times in the last 30 years.
yeah,
But you're right, they completely don't know. And a matter of fact, I'm really looking forward to this because I know next week we're actually going to talk about this very thing. We're going to talk about, hey, if you wanted to actually start building AI, how do you do it? Like, really, how do you do it? Not just like platitudes. And we're going to have a great conversation about that, which you're going to really enjoy.
yeah. We should have Eric on as a guest, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, yeah. But I'll tell you, when you see the topic, it can easily lean into being super controversial.
Right, right. Alrighty. Next.
Next is a little light, and then we can go next. All right.
There we go.
So, David, I love this. We actually combined two different topics on this, and I know we're going to get into it, but I'll frame the two different topics, and then we can kind of I can get your opinion and debate. The first thing is, this was a very interesting letter. It was published in the National Association of Home Builders, and what it did is it quoted what the MBA and NAHB are telling Congress, and specifically, I think it quoted Buddy Hughes, who's the chairman of NAHB, and he recently testified in front of Congress, and he said, "Look, you want to solve the affordability problem? Get your foot off my neck. Like we can build a gazillion homes if you quit throttling it down." And in the article, and what he said in his testimony, he said, "Look, nearly 25% of the cost of a single family house is a direct result of your fees to us. Just it's a direct result of you, and the 40% of an apartment is a direct result of regulations, all these things, permitting." He goes, "So let's just start there. You want to cut the price of houses by 25%? Take your foot off my neck." But then it went in further, and I don't really appreciate this. He goes, "And that's only direct costs. Indirectly, all these regulate like minimum energy standards are adding 50, $100,000. Like in California, you have to have solar on every single house, right?
Mm.
So and these houses, it's like $7,500, $150,000. Well, how do you build a low price house if you start with a requirement of $100,000 in solar? It's impossible, right? And then there's all these conflicts in state and local and federal codes. They're like, look, we need some amnesty. We can't, because at any one point we step on a landmine. You have to help us clarify this so that we have one standard that we can go by. And then on top of it, he goes, on bigger developments, you mandate that we have U.S. source material. There's some material isn't available in the U.S. And by the way, it's not necessarily cheaper. So maybe we can fix that. And by the way, maybe you shouldn't tariff the hell out of the materials we're buying because it's driving up our cost of materials. If you like, does it make sense that you have a 50% tariff on lumber if we don't produce the lumber here in the U.S.? I mean, all you're doing is raising the price of that house. And then, really interestingly too, I thought this was super fascinating because I wasn't aware of this. That regulators mandate from the Davis-Bacon Act, they mandate that builders use prevailing wages. And prevailing wages, David, I don't know if you're familiar with them. I was in construction a long time ago. It means that you have to pay the highest rank of prevailing union or state wages for the same job. So let's say it's the carpenters and union carpenter and level 5 carpenter earns $75 an hour. Well, that's what you're paying to everybody that uses a hammer and a nail on your site, right?
Whoa.
And they go, we can hire people for $15 an hour, but you're mandating we do $75 an hour. And he goes, maybe this is good in utopia, but if you really want to solve affordability, like fix these easy problems, right? They're not complicated problems to fix if you just think about this, right? And then on top of it, there's a giant labor shortage in construction. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you saw this, but the labor job construction jobs are at the lowest they've been in like 30 years. There's only 350,000 people, labor people that work in the trades right now. And historically, it would be an emergency if we dropped under 500,000. But
Mm.
there's nobody to fill the jobs, right? So, and so all these are impediments to building affordable houses, right? And all these are somewhat easily solvable if government just got out of the way. So that's the first part of the equation. All right. Dave, you want to comment on that before I go to the second part of the affordable
I was
equation?
No, I was going to actually ask you to break down, because 25% of the cost is
Direct cost.
direct cost. I was going to
Yeah.
ask for some real life examples, but you just painted a picture there of several of them. That's mind blowing.
Right from the guy's testimony, which has been more and more articles are saying the same thing. Because if President Trump really wants to solve affordability, if all these states want to solve affordability, it's not complicated. It's just somebody has to back up a little bit, you know. So super interesting, you know. Now, David, let's go to the second half. And so the first half is government is adding a ton of cost to houses, right? And then if they're adding $200,000 per house, how are we going to have affordable houses? And this is let's say that was something else I want to be super clear about. We have an affordability crisis in America, and the crisis is caused by not enough entry level or affordable homes. Period. And the solution isn't dropping prices. The solution isn't lowering interest rates necessarily. The solution isn't subsidized rates or added down payment. The solution is flooding the market with entry level homes. And when I say entry level, depending on what market you're in, if you're in a low cost market, I'm talking a $150,000 home. And if you're in a higher cost market, I'm talking about a $250,000 home. If we had to reverse engineer that, how can we do that? And if we could do that and we could add 3 or 4 million homes to the marketplace, we no longer have an affordability issue. Not only that, but by providing lower priced homes, we wouldn't necessarily erode current price valuation, which the president has rightfully said, look, I don't want to solve affordability problems by simply erasing a ton of wealth in America. And so the solution is to flood it with affordable homes that won't affect current prices. Super simple. Now, we're getting to a Ben Carlson article, and he wrote like, what's the affordability issue with homes essentially, and how he started. He said, look, if you just looked at house prices, they've gone up 194% over the last, say, 55 years. And if it was just a matter of inflation, they only would have gone up to $142,000 versus $417,000. And so he said, look, 200% of the increased cost has nothing to do with inflation, right? And David, let's take aside the argument of the government not helping, but this is what's really interesting. Let's go to the next slide. He said, okay, let's just look at this in reality. How much of this is a market problem, and how much is this like from a consumer, demand? And he goes, in 1973, all these 1973, 49% of homes had no air conditioning. Today, at least 93% of homes have air conditioning. In 1973, 40% of homes had less than 1.5 baths. Today, only 4% have fewer than 1.5 baths. Similarly, in 1973, 64% of houses had 3 bedrooms, while today, 64% have less than 3 bedrooms, with only 23% have 4 bedrooms or more. Today, about half the houses have at least 3 bedrooms, and half come with more than 3 bedrooms, right? And so totally different. And then, back in 1973, the average square foot per house was 1,500 square feet. Today, it's 2,500 square feet, right? So it's gone up significantly. It's almost doubled. And why the space is almost doubled at the same time, the number of people living in the house has gone from an average of 3 down to 2.5. So we talked about this last week, David. The average square foot per person in a home has gone from 517 square feet to 960. So is the affordability problem home prices? Is it interest rates? Or is it, you want the same house that your parents had, but you actually want it to be twice as big and have all these amenities, right? Meaning, another thing to solving the affordability problem, go back to building 1,500 square foot houses. It's not that hard, right? Give people a starting point to buy. It doesn't have to be a 3,500 big foot mansion with marble countertops. Give them something affordable that solves the affordability problem, and then let them start earning a little bit of appreciation and become moving up. We don't have that move up anymore because your first house is $1 million, which it is in California. It's $1 million and it's 3,000 square foot. It's harder to move up because you took a really big first step, and that's why you're not buying until you're 40 years old. David, what do you think about this?
I think people in 1973 were a lot happier than they are today, too. There's that.
And I think we talked about this, David, and we might have disagreed a little bit. I think the quality of the houses built in 1973 are better than the quality of houses today.
Yeah,
You
not as
know,
big and as
and
many rooms, but quality, yeah.
and you know what? You spent more time out of the house because you had a small house, and you had smaller lots, so you had tighter communities, right? I mean, today you have such bigger lots and you have big houses. People have to go outside, But solving affordability isn't hard. Get the government off builders' back, and then build smaller houses. It's not that
Is
hard to solve.
is one of the issues as well, though, the cost of land as well? From a builder's perspective, land is so expensive as well, and that's not gonna change. So building smaller houses, you could build more, but is that a kind of a barrier that they have to get past as well?
Yeah, but I think the price of land is just a function of inflation, and so just like everything, it's more expensive, but relatively, it's not 4 times more expensive. It's the
Yeah.
expense is greater because of inflation, and that's okay. Because remember, wages are increasing faster than inflation. So if the prices are just inflated by natural inflation, it's okay. It's when they're elevated 3 times what inflation would have been that we have a huge problem, right? And so I don't think land's so much a big problem. It's more the builder wants to make a margin. Like the minimum builder wants to make 15%. And on a smaller home, probably they want to make 20%, maybe even 30. Well, they can't do that and build a $250,000 home if all these things are going to put in $400,000 in expense before they begin, right? Whether it's
Mhm.
government or what the expectation is of the house size. So we got to just totally recalibrate. And if I was president, that's what I would do. And I'd flood the market. And by the way, David, instead of being able to put, say, 37 houses on a 35-acre lot of land, what if you could put 100, right? I mean, that also helps. That's the thing, smaller lots, just
Mhm.
build these little houses would be great, in my opinion.
Do you ever see that actually happening?
Used to happen all the time, and
Yeah.
it still does happen a little bit in low cost areas in the South, Mississippi, Arkansas. It still happens a little bit, and I think it's coming back, David. I think we're getting back to it, but the problem is you have to do both. You can't build a 1,500 square foot house with no amenities and then charge $400,000. It just doesn't work. And so you need the government to give you relief too, so you can get better, more value. Right? That's the key point. Take the government costs off of it, and then make them smaller, and they'll probably be pretty dang attractive.
Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty, you you wanna move to some rapid fire topics?
I do. I got your cue there. Rapid, Ron. Rapid.
We are talking about, canceled deals, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So in December, 40,000 buyers canceled, representing about 16.3% of the current escrows. So that's a big number, 16.3%. Really, the takeaway here is, once again, this is another call to action. If you're a real estate or mortgage professional, know your home buyers are skittish. They might have unrealistic expectations. They're riding really light in the saddle. We need to do much better, buyer education up front. We need to explain everything that's going to happen to them so they don't get skittish. We have to explain how to react to a home inspection. What are your best options if it comes in something other than you want? Why are you buying this house? Why is it right? All those type of things. And because what do buyers do is they come in with a parachute saying, with the least thing, I'm canceling. And part of the reason why is because they think they can get a better deal tomorrow than today. And I'm not so certain that's the case. I'm not so certain that we're going to see a better environment tomorrow. And those are things we just have to educate our home buyers on, which just means it's a huge opportunity for mortgage and real estate professionals.
How much money do real estate agents and loan officers, or maybe the companies, lose? I guess it depends on at what stage they cancel, but how much money can they potentially lose from a cancellation?
Yeah, it's totally different from each entity because, as you know, where real estate agents lose the most money is when they lose listings
Yeah.
because they actually pay money to market the listing. They pay
Right.
money, for professional photography to get, professional work done, to do marketing. And so when they cancel, there's a real loss. What happens on the real estate side, on the buy side, the admin cost is to their broker, right, for all the oversight and admin support. And then it's the agent's loss of time because as you know, being a buyer's agent is very labor intensive. You take people to a bunch of homes, you're driving around with them. You can only deal with so many, buyers in a certain month. And if you're dealing with, say you're a single agent and you're dealing with 5 buyers and they all cancel, well, you just lost your income for the month, And so that's where the cost is of your time. Now, on a
Hmm.
mortgage company, David, when we take an application, that application could cost, you know, $2,000 to get to the fully approved stage, right? I mean, oftentimes we spend $1,000 on the credit report, and then
Hmm.
we may or may not collect for the appraisal up front, and then we have the whole cost of our sales teams and sales support and our manufacturing platform. All those are real costs that we have to spend. There's a lot of other costs behind it, like our subscriptions and all that kind of stuff, and so for lenders, it costs a lot more, and it's a much bigger problem.
You said $1,000 for the credit report?
So it depends on your company and company's agreement. Tri-merge credit report costs about 100 bucks to $200,
That's
100
what I
to,
thought.
per person. Yeah, per person. And then you have to update it every 90 days. And then frequently you're making changes to it. You're doing corrections. And depending on what corrections you're doing, a rapid rescore costs about $225 $225. The average cost for credit fees is somewhere around $1,000 for the whole process. And
Jeez.
you got a bunch of other stuff through your credit report. You're doing other things, verifications and stuff, but it's typically what you're going to spend, and it's a huge spend if you're not closing those loans.
That's crazy. I always thought it was like in the couple $100 range, not the $1,000 range.
There's just so many products available, and there's all sorts of what if, like the what if simulator you got to pay for, and then when you're fixing credit you got to pay for that, and every time you run your credit report you got to pay for that, and then you have some tie-in fees with the other vendors to be able to integrate your credit report into their systems. It just keeps stacking up.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to our next rapid fire. We are talking about inventory boomerang.
This is the flip side of the coin, David. And this is, we're talking about the same thing, but we're talking about sellers. So this is a really interesting statistic right here. And you can show the slide. What it says in the first slide is in January, 11% of this is interesting. So 11% of the inventory, and it's a significant amount, it's like 70,000 homes. 11% of the inventory is relisted inventory. This is super important to pay attention to. And just, David, to put into perspective, that means about 10% of the inventory in January was relisted houses. And relisted means I previously had it listed, I took it off the market, I let it kind of cure itself, and now I'm putting it back on the market 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months later. That's what relisted means. But here's the thing that we have to pay attention to. And we might have one other slide, which I don't really, it's not germane. But here's what we have to pay attention to. When you have a seller that is relisting their property, that seller is approaching the whole exercise of selling their home differently, right? And so they're going to be far more motivated to actually consummate a deal. So they're going to negotiate more, they're going to do more concessions. It is a giant opportunity signal for buyers, right? Because the seller now knows it's going to take a little bit to sell their home, and they're not going to be as stubborn. They're going to be a little bit more flexible. They're not going to necessarily stick to their price. The other thing is, by the fact that they're relisting their home, they're showing that they're motivated to sell. And so I would pay attention. One of the things, I'd educate my buyers about the opportunities of relistings, which once again are 10% of the inventory. And here we're showing how it varies by state. Of course, the states that had the highest amount of cancellations 5 months ago now have the highest amount of relistings. But I would pay attention if my market has a lot of relistings, and I would start to strategize if I was a real estate agent, I'd start to coach my home buyers if they get into a relisting opportunity, how we're going to optimize it, maximize the opportunity. And if I was a loan officer, I would be collaborating with my real estate partners on how we can best together educate our home buyers and get them excited about the opportunity. And that's the only thing. There's not a lot more to that topic other than that there's a giant signal here that this is a total opportunity signal for home buyers.
Yeah, pull that map up again. Looks like Texas has a lot, right?
Texas has a lot. Florida, of course, has a ton. California has a lot. As you'd expect, Washington, the state of Washington has quite a bit. Up in New England, they have quite a bit. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of listings.
I think Charlotte's on there. I think that dot is right on Charlotte.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's 76 in January. There's 76,000 homes that were relisted. The inventory for sale is only like 650,000, so it's over 10%.
Yeah. And average time on market right now is right around 73, 74 days, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think.
right around that. Yeah, average days on the market, but that's not, David, that's not a super long time, honestly, because you used to say, look, the equilibrium was when it took 120 or 180 days to sell your house. It was 6 months. We've moved that. The total market's changed in the last 30 years. So now we're saying it's 4 months, it's 120 days. But anything under 90 days is still moving really fast.
Yeah. Yeah. And our next rapid fire topic, you could kind of tie some parallels to the next one with domestic migration, maybe, right?
Yeah, yeah. This is really interesting. What states people are moving to and what states they're moving out of, and a lot of it goes to cost of living, housing opportunity, wages, all those type of things, quality of life. And it's not surprising the states they're moving to, the states they're moving out of, but it's all tied together, David.
Yeah. Let's pull up the chart on this one.
Yeah, interesting. This is by saying now this is really important because if you go just net migration, California by far is the highest. It allows the most amount of people, but that's unfair because California also has 40 million people. So if they lose 300,000, that's quite different than if North Carolina loses 300,000. But when you go to per capita, it's really interesting, and you wouldn't necessarily think this, but places like Hawaii, New York, California still lead it. But what's interesting is where people are moving to, and Idaho continues to be really popular, as does South Carolina. But David, I'd like the next slide a little better. I know it's going to be hard to see, but the next slide is more of a trend analysis because it shows, gosh, what was happening in 2022 and what happened last year. So in 2022, there was a lot more dark blue states, meaning net migration was increasing. In 2025, there's just a lot less mobility. Just people are not moving as much right now, and that has to do with job security, the vibe economy. Like if you are super confident in where your economy and your future is, you can move. But if you're uncertain if you get fired, you get another job, or you're uncertain that you'll be able to afford things, you stop moving. So that's what this map really says: is that movement within the United States slow down. And historically, it was like 20% of Americans move every year, and now we're down to less than 9%. I think it's around 7%. So that's what this chart really shows us.
Yeah. So many things are skewed with what happened with COVID and work from home and that kind of thing, because that's obviously a huge factor, right? Um,
Yeah. And now, the lock-in effect with, ultra low interest rates and you have a ton of equity, it'd be so expensive to move, and so you're not doing it. You're right. There's a lot of distortion for the last 5 years. It's just crazy.
hmm Yeah. Yeah, it seems like a lot of charts that we show, we shouldn't show trends from 2020 through 2022, as opposed to showing from 2026 to maybe 2018,
Yeah, we typically, all the charts we show, David, to your point, really, they compare 2018, 2019 to now
Yeah, right,
because that's really kind of a fair comparison.
right, right. And you want to talk about no spend January?
Yeah, I just want to talk about January in general. I thought this would be a really fun topic, David, because we've all heard about dryuary, and that's where you don't drink in January. But now there's all sorts of trends like it's veganuary, where you just try to eat vegan for January, which is actually a faster growing trend than dryuary. But the number one
Really?
growth trend for January was no spend January, where and it had it was a significant amount of how many people asked about no spend January, which is you don't spend any discretionary dollars. You just go to total zero. But it was the highest growth in searches on Google. And so when I was reading through this, I was wondering, and McKenna, you can definitely join us on this topic. Do you guys? It's like a New Year's resolution. Do you guys have any January commitments, and have they worked? Have you ever tried dryuary? You know,
I have not. I've done months where I cut out completely alcohol, but not at a specific January. But no, I've never really been a big New Year's resolution type guy. But you?
yeah. I'm not necessarily a big resolution type of guy, and I've never done a dryuary. But you know what happened, David? Dryuary had a huge impact on restaurants. They had to completely change what they're doing. That's where mock cocktails came, because they saw it was something like a 30% decline in their restaurant receipts in January due to this dryuary across the country. I mean, it was a huge impact.
This year?
No, no, not this year. Like over the last few years, it was
Oh
a
wow.
significant impact. McKenna, do you go dryuary or do you follow any of these trends?
I haven't done any of them, but this is the first time that I'm hearing about no spend January, and that honestly sounds so smart. I don't know if I could do it. I think I bought like two different comic books this like in the past week. And so I really like to just kind of impulse buy small things, but that sounds like a really good idea. Honestly, I might jump on that and well, it's February now, so maybe March.
I think anything that can get you to form a new habit and get a new discipline is worthwhile. You but interesting, really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't been. I'm not a big spender. I don't buy crap. I usually, um, anytime I buy something, it's usually some a bigger ticket item. I'm kind of a mostly content guy. It's usually mostly tools or crap I need for the house. But yeah, anytime I spend money on discretionary stuff, it's usually bigger ticket items, which doesn't happen very often. But
No, you're very not frugal, but financially responsible. Your whole family
yeah,
is. I appreciate that.
yeah, I'm not sure about that. All right. Our last thing is we've got a little bumper. We're gonna play it. So a little AI tip of the week. Here we go. All
Yeah,
right.
and I like to, Dave. I like to think this is more tech tip of the week because we'll talk about any type of tech.
Yeah.
And some weeks are super interesting. What do you think of this one? I think this topic is great.
We're talking about Claude, using Claude with the plugin in Chrome, right? Oh no,
Yeah,
Gemini in
yeah.
Chrome.
So no, it's actually I thought it was Claude actually, but and Gemini is doing something else. But no, it's actually I think Gemini. So sorry. So you can put a Gemini I think extension in Chrome, and what that allows you to do is you can invite Gemini to join you on a web page. And we have an example here, I think. And so this is somebody who started to look for a house. You could, click on Gemini, and what you would do is you could just, in a speaking way, tell Gemini what you were looking for, and then it would search the entire website and give you what you want. And that's think of how many websites you go to that are super complicated. Like there's 8,000 choices. Like let's say it might even be like autotrader.com, and the auto trader in your marketplace has 5,000 listings. Well, you just go, hey, Gemini, I'm looking to buy a car. My budget's about $8,000. I kind of like one of the late model last couple of years. I want a red one. Here's the features that are super important to me. Is there anything available? And then it will give you your top choices and rank them. Like here's one, two, three, four, right? And you don't have to scroll through the whole dang thing, right? And so this is a really big tool to use, I think, and I haven't used it yet, but I'm looking forward to using it.
You gave an example of Belinda yesterday, using it, planning out a vacation and
Yep.
cruises. When you book a cruise, there's so many of them, so many different ports, so many different ships, so many days at sea, and so on. So that's a great example of how you could use it.
Yeah, there's just so many choices, overwhelming, and it takes forever to try to scroll through everything. The same thing if you use like hotels.com. Hey, I want to go to San Francisco. This is the type of hotel. This is where I want it. This is the experience. This is my budget. Here are the features most important to me. What's my best choice? Bang. Gemini will tell you, right? And you don't have to go
Yeah.
through the whole thing. Or if you're using Canoe, whatever you're using, and or if it's cruising, even like restaurants, or even like if you were on Yelp, right? It will go through and get it for you, which is so efficient, I think.
Yeah. Um,
Or
and
by the
and
way,
and it. Go ahead.
an Amazon, Dave. Like you wanted to get an electronics component, you could just tell what you wanted, in an English way, and it will find it on Amazon if you invite it to the site while you're there.
How is that? How is that any different though than just using filter? Oh, well, that's a dumb question. I know what the answer is. I was going to say, there's filters on Amazon on any website, and is it really that big of a? I need to try it to see how much better it is than just using all the filters and all that kind of stuff. But
But remember, on Amazon, on Amazon, you're the product. They're selling you, right? So they're going to sell you what they want to sell you.
yeah,
Right. Amazon's goal is that I'm going to give Dave exactly what he wants. It's like Amazon's goal. I'm going to give Dave things I get paid for, or things that people are paying me to sell. Right. That's what Amazon's doing. Where
true.
Gemini doesn't have that motive. Right.
Yeah. What's this? And then we've got one more, right?
Yeah. A couple prompts. So here's an example of what you might tell Gemini in this. If you were on Zillow or Realtor.com, whatever it happens to be, just the more you give it, the best it's going to get you the data, and you don't have to spend those unbelievable amount of minutes or hours, surfing through these things.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. There you go. That's your AI tip of the week. Ron, start the music. Have a great day over wherever. I forget where you said you were. But that was fun. I enjoyed that. Learned a little bit. I think McKenna learned a lot. And hey, if you've joined us over the last hour or so, we appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel. We'll be back. I forget what day we talked about going live next week, Ron, probably Thursday. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. I don't remember. Thursday, I think. Someday.
We'll bring some more topics to you next week. We'll see if we'll have a from the gut, but if you've joined us, we appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. See you, Ron. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you, everybody.